Do you want to know all about larch? Do you want to know the difference between a Japanese, a European, or even a golden larch? And do you want to know the best time to prune them and how you can maximize your pruning opportunities? Well, if you do, you should be watching on. Hi, it's Xavier, and welcome to my bonsai retreat. And today, finally, getting to the Japanese larch. I've had a few requests to ask about when I'm going to get to do them and what's going to happen. The first thing I'll say is I'm going to point you to 3 very, very good videos in my Japanese larch series. Japanese larch. Got this one here. She purchased it in 2015 from a seller in Wales. Well, it was a lot smaller. I've done a lot of pad development and I'm going to be doing some pruning on this. And the pruning I'm going to be doing on this is purely tertiary. So I'm just going to be trying to maintain the shape and try and clear the way so light and circulation can get in. But before we do that, who wants to know what the difference is between all these different larches? Because I tell you what, I didn't realise there was such a difference. Okay, first of all, the larch, general species, is a deciduous conifer, I believe. And it's elongating. So that means, although it has the characteristics of a conifer, it sheds its needles, hence the deciduous nature. Of the species, the Japanese larch, the European larch, and other varieties of that, all very, very frost hardy, good, hard, solid wood. This one is a Japanese larch. This one is a European larch. And this one is a Chinese larch. The difference between the Japanese and European larch can be broken down in 2 distinct ways: the cones and also the colour of the bark, or the shoot colour. And it becomes more obvious as we go later into the year when we get the needle drop. In essence, the European larch, which is this one here, the bark will stay, or on the shoots will stay, a much more strawy sort of colour, whereas on the Japanese larch, the shoots will have a much more rusty, reddy, sort of darker colour. So you see it in the shoots. With the Chinese larch, or the golden larch, well, to be honest, you can already see there's a difference. They have much a longer, paler, almost lime green needles. And as I said, not frost tolerant. We'll close up on the big difference to tell, and that's the cones. So if you're lucky enough to have cones, you should be able to spot the difference between your European and Japanese larch straight away. So the best way of demonstrating this difference in the cones, if you look at this Japanese larch, this mature cone opened up, what you should be able to see from this is the way the actual ridges have opened up and then flared out and almost flattened. So that's the main difference, because what you'll notice with the European larch is they actually go pretty well straight up. Whereas on this larch that was collected in Wales, it's actually a European larch. And again, the reason we can see it is if we look at the cones, older cones, the panels, or whichever way you want to call them, are still pointing upwards. Same one on this one, slightly sheathed and pointing upwards. And as I say, the main shoots on these will stay a much more strawy colour rather than the darker bronze rust red. So that's how you can tell the difference between those two. Okay, so we know the difference between the different larches. No cones, but I know this for a fact to be a Japanese larch because I got it from a sapling and planted it myself. It's been in a bed for the best part of 6-7 years, then in pots, and say this one's 22, 23 years old, definitely. Again, like a few of them I've never got around to it. I've just left it as it is. And this is actually interesting root there. It's going to be quite an impressive larch when I've finally get around to doing something with it. First thing, like all of our deciduous trees, you gauge what sort of pruning you do by just how good a flush it is. I've been probably about 2 weeks later on my larch pruning, and even now, probably 70% of them just aren't there. And the reason why is last year, we all know, we keep talking about it, that real baking hot summer. It played havoc with lots of different species of trees, and the larch was no different. And in truth, this year is probably going to be a recovery year for a lot of trees. And my big advice straight away, whether it be larch or any other, if you're not seeing the flushes of growth, it's just maintaining that which it's got, then leave it alone. Keep it well watered, feed it, but basically let it rest. What you are looking for, if you're going to be doing some pruning, is lots of green, vibrant growth. Look here, shoots all over the place. And then in that case, I can prune it. But what are we actually looking for to prune? Let's take an example from the tree. Now I've removed this from about halfway up the tree, and I've removed this from the absolute apex, and this has been removed off one of the hardened branches right at the top. If we let our larch grow out wild, we will have lots of growth like this, and it will keep on elongating and elongating, and slowly over time these ones will get masked by darkness from the stuff above and will die. You'll never get any extension. So extension like this, which you want, you'll very rarely get. The further it goes out towards the light, the more extensions you get. To try and get these to extend is relatively straightforward. If this branch was very low down and I'm looking to establish thickness, then I would let it grow out. But at the very time that I'm happy with the thickness that that branch is at, and say, this is a thickness I want, I say, right, okay, well, what length do I want my lowest branch to be at? And nicely, we'll say we've got these two here, and we pick there. So I would cut, and that means now I want these two to be the branch length and for everything to grow from there. If I was higher up the tree at the top third, then all I want is the growth from here. But I've got this great big long stuff. I can quite easily come along and chop there. So I've got some new whorls and buds that will come out this way, and I've got two there that will come out that way. And ultimately I can go all the way back and start right at the top of the tree where I just want these two to extend as the new growth. Imagine this is the absolute apex of the tree. This is, you know, a shoot that's going directly up to the sky seeking Jupiter. And we could look at it and think, right, I want to bring it all the way back to here. So these are my two apical shoots, and in which case we would cut off all that. And with the apex, we're trying to control that growth. In this instance, I've got this great big long leader going off. I definitely don't want that. I've cut it away from the top, and this is what we've got. Now I would have a number of options with this, and it all depends on the placement of these light brown buds. So should we strip this off first so you can see them? This gets better and better. That says wall. I've actually written it out because sometimes I say it and people think I'm saying wall or whatever. Anyway, that's the wall, and that actually represents that fan of initial needles that comes out right at the base of a new bud. And this will be the absolute first point that you can cut back to, because there are two dormant buds. And that's important to recognize, because when we're dealing with these, if we are looking to try and reduce internodal distance, and that's the distance between, say, that brown bud to that brown bud, if they were the two, then you would have a shoot coming out here and a shoot coming out here. Ideally, what you actually want is a situation where those two buds are as close together as possible. So you'd want the bud there and say another bud almost, a couple of millimeters further away of it. So you get the absolute smallest internodal distance to help with the process. So if you were lower down the tree, then that sort of distance would be quite good, and you've got another one here. So you might actually cut here, knowing then that you're going to get a shoot from there, and that may suit you quite happily. If you're near the ends though, and you're trying to keep this distance here shorter and shorter, then you ideally want to try and go further back. Now in this instance, if we've removed all the needles there, we've got the bud there, and then we've absolutely got nothing between there, and that's nearly 2 centimeters. If you're at the base of the tree, that's a great internodal distance, not a problem. I'd have that bud there, and that would give me 2 branches, first part of my ramification, and that's what I would cut to if I was happy with the thickness of that branch. But if that was at the apex, I want my buds to be right up here, nice and tight. Now, if they don't exist, on my first pruning, now, what I would do, I would cut it there, and what I would be looking for is the 2 buds that are right at the base of that floret or wall to be activated, and then what you'll get is hopefully 2 shoots coming right from the base. Often what you actually get is 1 shoot. But in 6 weeks' time, I can then look, and again, what I'll be looking for is to try and get 2 bud points that are a lot closer together. And as I said before, if I'm very, very lucky and I've got a very, very healthy, vigorous tree, I can do that process again, probably somewhere at the latter stages of August or the first week or so of September. Hopefully get a third smaller flush, and by the time you get to the third smaller flush, those buds are very, very close together. Last year, I think I had 2 trees that I was able to do 3 to, and the ramification you get is awesome, and it really does do so much for getting that tree a long way towards being a better bonsai. You need to feed it up heavily, and it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you'll cut at the site where you want 2 buds to come from, and only 1 comes out, and the other one doesn't activate, and you have to go back and start the process again, looking back to a bud point. So ultimately, it's down to you to look at your tree, look at the relative thickness of the branch, and decide, 1, is the branch thick enough? If it is, establish the length that you want for that, and then start developing your branch structure by taking the tips off. Once you're happy with that, then you are just always looking at those buds, the dormant buds. So with something like this, it's healthy, it's got lots of growth. I will start pruning and showing you what I'm going to do. And hopefully some of that will make sense. So this was one of the Yamadori dig trees. In fact, it was 2 trees, and what I've done is I've put 2 of them together. It's not quite fusion, can it? But I've put 2 on top, and the roots are slowly combining together so I can create this. It doesn't look like a twin trunk, but I quite like that as a little planting group, little planting. And what I'm doing, it's not going to be taller than this. So now I know the height. There's already a reasonable ramification happening, but I'm going to be pulling it back with a view to making that ramification better. But that root structure is absolutely lovely. It's got a really, really quite hard wood. It's quite sought after for furniture and stuff like that. So once it's hardened, once it's being treated, it can stay for quite a while. And this deadwood's been like this for 5-6 years. So I find really good success results with larch for deadwood. Just cleaning up. And again, there's not a lot of growth on this branch, so all I want to do is be aware of where I'm going to be forming new pads. And you can wire larch, and I have done so, but I find I tend to try and avoid wiring larch because they grow so vigorously, and it's so difficult to wire off at the time when it's expanding. What I'm looking for is I'm not looking for any more extension out. I'm just now initially clipping for profile. I could do with this coming out a lot further. I need this to come out further, but we've got back here, this is, unless I wired, this is too far out. The branches, I want them to be a lot tighter. So I can take it all the way back to this and try and activate that. So I'm going to take that off. What you're trying to do is create sort of a lozenge shaped pad. And again, this one coming off to the side there, don't want that. So on this branch we've got one coming out. We've got what we want is these to send out new shoots. And often with larch, and I didn't do it this year, I'll do my pruning for them in the very, very early spring, late February, before the buds have opened, but they're still green. And then pick the ones that I want. But I always wait until they're green, because you never know with larch whether or not they're going to actually activate. I'm just going to remove upward growth. This one's a big upward one. We've got a branch here and here, which I'm happy with, so we'll take that one off. Go on the upward one there. And again, you're optimizing light into the system. So we've got here and here buds. You want to get those going to get some, because at the moment all you've got there is one big straight length. In fact, the second bud last year only sent out another straight line. So it's terrible. I need those 2 or that one to send out shoots. So I'm watching it. And the good thing is, if I don't like that, I can actually go, do you know what? In fact, if you look at this, you've got 1, 2, and this one in the middle. And it may be that it's either a case of, because we've got this one here, taking this one off, or going all the way back. There's 2 buds here, that one there and that one there. So I could take all the way back to there if I wanted to, but I won't. Because I know I've got this branch here, this one's more likely to cause problems with that. If I remove that one, I've got 2 buds coming out from there. So go back to those 2. That's actually quite horrible. That's a clunky thing. I don't like those clunky bits. Is that a technical term, clunky? So I could actually remove that. I'll remove that one as well. Either way, I don't want this high up the tree, that great long internodal distance there. I want it nice and tight, so I'm going to force those to do something. And again, I've got to be ready to accept that they may not do anything for sort of 2-3 months. They might send out a shoot later on in the year. But there are 2 buds at the back. We've got a junction. There's basically a junction that's divided into 2. So basic pad shape there. The reason why I'm hesitating is because as it stands, we've got this quite nice shape coming out here. I need to come back on this a bit. And although I'd quite like to have those 2 buds, you know what? That's what I'll do. Okay. All right, that's what we've done. It's a tight pad there, so that will be its own pad. That's what we're going to do. And then this one, got an upward one, so it divides to 1, 2, it's 1 back here. Really, I want those to, got a downwards one and upwards one. Again, the always thing, it's like junipers. If you remove everything, then the branch dies. So although I don't like the look of an upward one or a downward one, I do need to keep a reason for the branch to be feeding this part. So I'll keep those as they are. Looks nice. And they may well extend, and then the result of new bud placement, I may get a chance to have a bit down and then horizontally out again. So I'm now going to go around. That's the lowest on this. So coming back here, I know I've got to bring this right back. It's quite, if you look up there, it's quite chaotic in here. And the answer is that actually, this sort of work is much easier in the, well, do I want to do that one? Yeah. Okay. Now we've opened that out a bit. And so then we've got 1, 2. I'm going to do that. This here. Again, we have got no extension, so I don't need to make decisions on those. No extension there. There's extension back on this one. And if you have a look there, I've got 1, 2, 3. I'll do the 2. Take it back to there. If I wanted to, I could bring this all the way back to here, where I've got buds here. And actually, may not be such a bad idea. So I've got this long stretch here. Rid of that upper one. Got a small branch there, and then potentially one that will come here, which I much prefer the look of. So that's an example of, you might be able to just see your new bud points, but they're too young to do anything with, so don't touch them. We've got something up here, and again, we've got the ideal position. We've got all the way back there, we've got buds, but we've got 2 there with very short internodal distance, so we'll cut to them. This one here is coming out over the top of this pad. And there's also a great big distance here. We'll cut back to there for now. And these buds, these shoots here, will be the ones that I'll be doing all the pruning on in 6 weeks' time, or maybe in 4 weeks' time. And I'm just going to continue to work my way around it. Where are we at? So we've done these. And say if we've got anything in the crotch or that, we don't want that wasting energy there. Or anything that's going to do a shoot inwards to another branch, we can get rid of that. This branch is far too long here. So I'm looking for two. Got these two here, 1 and 2, I quite like the look of. See where that takes you to. That brings the pad nicely back in. Got an upward one there I can remove straight away. That allows me to see what that junction looks like. But again, that sort of work I would be doing certainly in the, there's a downwards one here, certainly in the very early spring. Don't want that. If I wanted to, if you have a look at this whole structure, it's coming out. If I wanted to start it again, and this with a lot of these trees, you've got to think like that. How am I going to rebuild this in a few more years' time? There's actually, all the way back there, buds there. I could actually remove this lower branch here, this whole branch here, basically regrow from that shoot there. I've got this one on this side, which is going upwards. It's not actually a very good one, but I need it. It's one that potentially I would wire at another date. But for now, let's just shorten it off. Now we've got our pad here, or pad here. If this was more mature, what you can do, and you've seen, I certainly saw it in a video from Yelly, you can also very gently remove lower needles, give you some separator to give you a greater clean lines and room between pads. Okay, so I've been continuing to go around. This tree, only a few there, but I've got the basic shape that I'm looking to go from on this one. Haven't touched this one yet, or that trunk of that one. Down lower here, brought this branch all the way in nicely. Looking at all the different points I want new buds to extend from to try and fill in this area. Ideally, you'd want to keep this out here. This needs to grow and catch up, but I've got an issue I need to decide here, and that's to do again with internodal distances. I've got this great big long distance here, and then here. They're the same. You want them to be, every internodal distance should get progressively shorter as you go out along the branch, thereby increasing, or thereby helping with the taper as well. So if I look at that one overall, also this horrible long, this stretch here, which is terrible, and there's just part and parcel. I could actually go, I've got a bud there, and actually take it all the way back to there. So that's one decision, and if you look at that, that would then eliminate the fact that I've got this great big strong length, long length here, very, very similar thicknesses, started again from here. It's quite high up the tree, so it would make sense. Although I've got this lovely foliage here, it's not in keeping with the rest of the tree. So I actually really, if I want to remove that, try and get something from there and there, I need to go all the way back and do that. Remove all that lovely growth and rebuild from there. And they're the sort of decisions that you'll continue to make, certainly when you're working with the likes of larches or anything, because ultimately these trees want to grow, you let them grow. Eventually, the branches at the end do start dying out, and I've got to do it with my old man larch. I've actually got to remove a whole big section, which I'll show you in another video, and look to grow from much further back. So you certainly don't want to be eliminating those buds if they're there. Here I've got this shoot here, very, very fresh shoot. It's now going to be extending into this. I'm now looking on it to see if I can see, and you can't see them I'm sure, but just there, they're two buds pretty well opposite each other. So I will cut to there. And again, that cutting decision will also be keeping in mind the shape of a lozenge. I mean, we haven't got that on this because I need to regrow these. Here, this branch here is now extending right over the top of this one. What I will do is have a look and see where I can cut that one back to. I'm going to have a rosette there and a rosette there, so I can still potentially cut off to there. So I get growth from there and there. Got a branch lower here. We've only got the one, but we've got a growth, and there's an obvious one. We've got a growth behind. We want to remove that one totally. We don't want it growing into the trunk. There's a branch here that's got 1, 2. It's got a nice little structure there. But what I like is this is going up, so that could go down and create 2 pads. But I've got to look and see. 1, 2. I've got to see where it is that there's likely to be any growth from. We've got a wall there and there. So I could actually regrow that. Let's take a few of the needles off from the bottoms. Finished it all off. Cleaned out a few bits of weeds. Put some Oceana on the top, the seaweed fertilizer. And first thing you know, this will definitely get to be potted next year. Larch, they are very, very vigorous on root growth if they're healthy. And this has already been this for 1 year, and it's quite a shallow pot. Also, because it's a shallow pot, we've got a week of really hot weather coming up. Instead of making the mistakes I made of last year, I'm going to be actually redistributing my trees around the garden a bit. And I will be implementing definitely a lunchtime watering as well. Because not a lot of growth left on this now. I've given it a good heavy prune back, but I've got buds where I want them to be. And I'm looking now for this thing to respond. And I don't expect to get 3 out of this. I'd be looking to see how it is in the mid-August to early September time for its second pruning before we go into the fall period. Fall, I've done it, the autumn period. So lovely, lovely root structure. That's that one. And again, if you feel you didn't get enough out of this, then I really do stress, go back and have a look at my Larch series in the playlist. Okay, we're going to go back and do the rock one, the 2 Larch on rock. That's all tertiary, so it's just more of the same. So I'll give you a quick spin when it's done, I think. And now we're going to go back to the one you saw right at the beginning. This should be just a really quick back, looking at this right at the top here. What I am trying to do is it's come a long way, is to create more layers up there. So I'm actually want to create more up here. So I've got stuff here that I may well wire up, and I'm looking for it to build over this. I'm also intending, and I meant to do it this year, and I think I mentioned it in one of my videos, there's a place around here where I can plant a 3rd tree. That will definitely happen next year. This is looking good, but I'm just going to look back and think, here, there you go, is an opportunity. I've got 2 coming out here. I've actually got an opportunity to cut back to there and then reduce that. And it's something actually I'm thinking about. I went from there because otherwise we've got this long length going there, then it splits there. Maybe. Although I do like that pad structure there, even with the bird poo. I'm trying to create that length over there. So really, they're decisions I make, and there's no right or wrong decision. In the end, it's your tree. You're the one who's deciding how you're gonna make it look. So I'll come back to you when I've done it. Well, as always, things take longer, and I removed an awful lot more than I reasoned that I was going to. But again, it came back to, I have looked at a lot of other people's videos, Yelly especially, and I keep recognizing as I'm learning more and more that I actually have to create the pathways, the space, and a sense of depth to a tree. And if you can't see into the tree, one, you can't appreciate the structure that's been developed there, and also you end up killing all the inner growth. So, well, talking of killing inner growth, I ain't got much growth on my hair, so I don't want to kill it with the sun. There it is. I'm really happy with how it's come on. I'll give you a close-up Nigel-esque tour of it. Got our little lab in there. That's my Larch on rock, and you can see there's air. It's going to be a lot healthier for it, and I'm really happy with how it's gone. I could have shown you the process I went through it, but it really was a case of, where I had 3, I'd reduced to 2, where I had junctions up here. I had quite a few junctions here with the 3 or 4 branches come off. I had to decide which one was going to be the most advantageous for the future development, which way was it going to actually spread. So the decisions became apparent as I did them, and hopefully you don't mind that you've missed them. I won't spin it round. This is its viewing angle, so you know the back's just a bit of rock. But anyway, that's a bit of a close-up and look. You can definitely see the gaps and the spacing. It's certainly good enough for the dog. Don't know how well the focus is going to work on this. And you can see the branch placement. Anyway, so hopefully you've enjoyed the close-up of it. I've certainly enjoyed doing this larch today. Bit of science, bit of fun. There's that big development larch that I've still got to do. I've got my cloud larch I've still got to do. And the only reason I haven't done that is I've got a funny feeling that's going to be a 2 prune. So I want that to really just keep on getting more and more vigour. I've got the structure I want, and I just want it to keep going. And the rest of them still haven't really shown the growth that I need. So, from Xavier, in my bonsai retreat, cooking, as we're about, I think tomorrow's going to be 29 degrees. So we're going in for a bit of a hot week. Thanks very much for taking time to watch. Any comments, please put them down there. And I wish you all the best. Happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.